First story, the eerie incident on North Brother Island. North Brother Island, situated in the East River between the Bronx and Rikers Island in New York City, has a long history of being abandoned and eerie. Once the site of Riverside Hospital, it housed patients with contagious diseases in the early 20th century, including the infamous Typhoid Mary. However, in the summer of 2022, a new incident added to its haunted reputation. A group of urban explorers, intrigued by the island's history and abandoned structures, decided to visit North Brother Island. Despite being off limits to the public, they managed to access it via a small boat. The group consisted of 3 friends, Sarah, Mike, and Jenna. Equipped with cameras and flashlights, they were eager to document their adventure. As they explored the crumbling buildings, they felt an unsettling atmosphere, as if they were being watched. Strange sounds echoed through the empty hallways, and cold spots were felt in several rooms, even though it was a warm summer day. Despite the eerie sensations, they continued their exploration, determined to capture unique footage. In one of the buildings, Sarah found an old journal tucked away in a hidden drawer. The journal belonged to a former nurse who worked at the hospital during its operation. The entries detailed strange occurrences and sightings of shadowy figures haunting the hospital grounds. The last entry mentioned a patient who had vanished without a trace, and the nurse's fear that something malevolent lurked on the island. As they read the journal, the atmosphere grew even more oppressive. Suddenly, they heard a loud crash from another room. Rushing to investigate, they found a heavy metal door that had fallen over, blocking their exit. Panic set in as they realized they were trapped. While trying to find another way out, they heard footsteps approaching, though they saw no one. The temperature dropped drastically, and they felt a chilling presence. Jenna, the most skeptical of the group, began to hyperventilate, claiming she saw shadowy figures moving towards them. Desperately, they found a window and managed to break it open to escape. Scrambling out, they ran back to their boat and quickly left the island, shaken and terrified by their experience. Later, reviewing their footage, they found several inexplicable occurrences: shadows moving independently, strange whispers on the audio, and a fleeting glimpse of a translucent figure in the background. The incident left them convinced that North Brother Island was truly haunted, and they vowed never to return. Second story, the mysterious happenings on Clipperton Island. Clipperton Island, a small and remote atoll in the Pacific Ocean, has a dark and mysterious history. In 2024, it gained notoriety once again when a scientific expedition encountered unexplained and terrifying events. A team of marine biologists from a renowned university set out to study the unique ecosystem of Clipperton Island. The team consisted of 6 members, led by Dr. Emily Carter. They arrived on the island with enough supplies for a month-long stay, aiming to document the diverse marine life and assess the health of the coral reefs. From the beginning, the expedition was fraught with difficulties. Equipment malfunctioned without explanation, and communication with the mainland was sporadic at best. Despite these challenges, the team pressed on with their research. One night, Dr. Carter and her colleagues heard strange noises coming from the interior of the island. They described the sounds as a mix of whispers and animal growls, unlike anything they had ever encountered. The following day, they discovered that several of their supplies had been tampered with or destroyed, although there were no signs of any intruders. As days passed, the unsettling occurrences escalated. Team members reported seeing shadowy figures at the edge of their camp and feeling an oppressive, malevolent presence. One morning, they found that one of their colleagues, Dr. James Bennett, was missing. His tent was empty and his belongings were undisturbed. A search of the island yielded no clues to his whereabouts. Disturbed by Bennett's disappearance and the growing sense of dread, the team decided to cut their expedition short. However, Their boat, which had been anchored securely, was found adrift and damaged beyond repair. Stranded, they radioed for emergency evacuation, but were informed that a rescue team could not reach them for several days due to a severe storm approaching. With no choice but to wait, the team fortified their camp and kept a close watch on each other. That night, they were awakened by piercing screams that echoed across the island. Rushing out of their tents, they found Dr. Sarah Collins in a state of hysteria, claiming she had seen Bennett standing at the edge of the camp, drenched and motionless, before vanishing into the jungle. Over the next few days, the remaining team members experienced vivid nightmares and hallucinations. The sense of paranoia and fear grew as they awaited rescue. When the evacuation team finally arrived, they found the scientists disheveled, terrified, and desperate to leave. Upon returning to the mainland, the survivors recounted their harrowing experiences, though many details were hazy and inconsistent. An investigation into Bennett's disappearance was launched, but no trace of him was ever found. The team members' accounts of supernatural occurrences were met with skepticism, but they stood by their story. The incident on Clipperton Island remains a mystery, and the atoll's dark reputation has only grown. Some believe the island is cursed, haunted by the spirits of those who perished there long ago. To this day, it stands as a place few dare to explore, its secrets buried beneath the sands and waves. Third story, the vanishing on Flannan Isles. In December 2024, a group of marine researchers from a prominent university ventured to the remote Flannan Isles in the Outer Hebrides of Scotland to study the area's unique marine life and ecosystem. This archipelago, known for its rugged beauty and historical lighthouse, had long been the subject of eerie tales and unsolved mysteries. The research team, consisting of 5 members, set up their base near the abandoned Flannan Isles lighthouse. The lighthouse, operational until 1900, was famously associated with the mysterious disappearance of its 3 keepers, a case that remained unsolved for over a century. The researchers were aware of the island's dark past, but were more focused on their scientific goals. On the 3rd night of their expedition, the team members, while reviewing their day's findings, began hearing faint, rhythmic knocking sounds. Initially dismissing it as the creaking of old structures, they continued their work. However, the knocking grew louder and seemed to be coming from different directions outside their base camp. Curiosity and a sense of unease prompted Dr. Laura Hayes, the team leader, to investigate. She, along with 2 other members, Paul and Sarah, stepped outside with flashlights. The knocking stopped abruptly, leaving them in an unnerving silence. They found nothing unusual and returned to their camp, hoping it was just the wind. The following day, strange occurrences escalated. Their equipment malfunctioned, and their supplies were mysteriously rearranged. More unsettling was the feeling of being watched. Paul reported seeing a figure in the fog, only for it to disappear when approached. Sarah found her journal with pages torn out and strange symbols drawn in the margins. That night, the knocking returned, now accompanied by distant whispers. The team, growing increasingly frightened, decided to stay together in the main building for safety. Dr. Hayes suggested they document the events, hoping to find a rational explanation later. Around midnight, they heard footsteps on the lighthouse stairs. With growing dread, they ascended the stairs to find the lighthouse empty. The door to the light room, which had been locked for decades, was ajar. Inside, they found a single lit candle on the floor, though no one had lit it. Suddenly, the door slammed shut behind them. They struggled to open it, but it seemed jammed. Panic set in as the candle flickered and the temperature dropped. The whispers grew louder, echoing around them. Just as quickly as it had started, the phenomena ceased, and the door swung open on its own. The team decided to abandon their research and call for immediate evacuation. However, their radio equipment failed, and they had to wait for their scheduled pickup. During this time, they stayed huddled together, experiencing more strange sounds and sightings. When the rescue boat arrived 2 days later, the team left the Flannan Isles, deeply shaken by their ordeal. They reported their experiences, but skeptics dismissed it as stress-induced hallucinations. Nonetheless, the researchers remained convinced that something unexplainable and malevolent haunted the Flannan Isles. Their story added another chapter to the island's long history of mystery and terror, ensuring that the Flannan Isles' reputation as a place of eerie occurrences continued into the modern age. Fifth story, the enigmatic events on Ilha da Queimada Grande. In the summer of 2024, a team of biologists and wildlife photographers embarked on an expedition to Ilha da Queimada Grande, also known as Snake Island, off the coast of Brazil. The island is infamous for its dense population of the highly venomous golden lancehead pit viper and is generally off-limits to the public. The team, led by Dr. Luis Fernandez, aimed to study the unique snake population and capture footage of the island's rare species. They were well prepared with safety gear and anti-venom, fully aware of the island's dangers. However, they were not prepared for the inexplicable events that would unfold. On their first night, the team set up camp near the lighthouse at the highest point of the island, which had been automated and abandoned for years. As they settled in, they heard hissing sounds that seemed too close for comfort. They dismissed it as the snakes, but the sounds continued, growing louder and more persistent. The next morning, they found strange circular patterns on the ground around their tents, as if something had slithered in circles. Dr. Fernandez, puzzled, suggested they stay vigilant, but continue their work. The team spent the day documenting the snakes and the island's flora, capturing remarkable footage without incident. That evening, as the sun set, they gathered to review the day's recordings. One of the team members, Anna, noticed something odd in the footage, a shadowy figure lurking in the background of several shots. It appeared human-like, but moved unnaturally fast. The team, already on edge, decided to investigate the area where the figure had been spotted. They found no signs of anyone else on the island, but the eerie feeling persisted. As night fell, they heard whispers carried by the wind, seeming to come from the lighthouse. The team decided to explore the lighthouse, hoping to find rational explanations for the strange occurrences. Inside the lighthouse, they discovered old, weathered books and equipment, remnants of the last keepers. Climbing to the top, they found a diary belonging to the final keeper, who had recorded his fear of an unknown presence on the island before his departure. The last entry hinted at something more sinister than just the snakes. Suddenly, their radios crackled with static, and a distorted voice whispered their names. Startled, they looked around but saw no one. The temperature inside the lighthouse dropped, and they felt an oppressive presence. Dr. Fernandez urged the team to leave immediately, but as they descended, Anna screamed. She pointed to a window, where they all saw a shadowy figure staring back at them before vanishing into the darkness. Terrified, they fled the lighthouse and huddled together in their tents, waiting for dawn. Strange noises and shadows plagued them throughout the night. At first light, they hastily packed their gear and headed to the shore to signal their boat for an early pickup. Upon their return to the mainland, the team reported their findings and the inexplicable events they experienced. While their scientific data was invaluable, their accounts of the paranormal were met with skepticism. Nevertheless, the team remained convinced that something beyond the natural world haunted Ilha da Queimada Grande. Their story added to the island's already fearsome reputation, warning future visitors that the snakes might not be the only danger lurking in the shadows. In the early months of 2024, a group of urban explorers decided to visit Poveglia Island, located in the Venetian Lagoon in Italy. Known as one of the most haunted places on Earth, The island has a dark history as a quarantine station for plague victims and a site for an asylum. The group consisted of 5 friends, all avid fans of the paranormal. They managed to gain access to the island despite its restrictions. Armed with cameras and other recording equipment, they planned to document their experience for a video series on YouTube. As night fell, they began to explore the dilapidated buildings. The atmosphere grew increasingly oppressive, and the temperature seemed to drop unnaturally. Their equipment began to malfunction, batteries drained quickly, and the cameras captured strange, flickering lights. One of the friends, Laura, felt an icy hand on her shoulder, but when she turned, there was no one there. Moments later, she heard whispers in Italian, though none of the group could understand what was being said. The whispers became louder and more frantic, echoing through the empty corridors. Terrified, they decided to leave. But as they made their way back to their boat, they realized one of their friends, Mark, was missing. Frantically searching the island, they found no trace of him. They called for help, and a rescue team arrived, but there was no sign of Mark. The footage they managed to recover from their cameras was chilling. It showed Mark walking into one of the buildings and then simply vanishing. The whispers grew louder on the recordings, and shadows seemed to move independently of any light source. Authorities conducted a thorough search of the island, but found no clues to Mark's whereabouts. The incident remains unsolved, and the remaining friends have been left with a deep sense of unease, haunted by the memories and the unanswered questions surrounding the night on Poveglia Island. In April 2024, a group of documentary filmmakers decided to venture to the Isle of the Dolls, La Isla de las Mucas, in Mexico. The island is famous for its eerie collection of dolls hanging from trees, placed there by the island's former caretaker, Don Julie and Santana, who claimed they warded off evil spirits. The team consisted of 3 filmmakers, Sarah, James, and Tom. They aimed to uncover the truth behind the legends and produce a compelling documentary on the island's haunting atmosphere. As they arrived, the island greeted them with an unsettling silence. The air was thick with a sense of dread, and the disfigured dolls hanging from every tree branch seemed to watch their every move. They set up camp and began filming, capturing the island's eerie ambience. On the second night, strange things began to happen. Sarah reported hearing faint giggles and whispers, though they were alone on the island. James's equipment malfunctioned, with cameras shutting off unexpectedly and audio devices picking up disturbing, childlike laughter. Determined to stay until dawn, the team decided to split up to cover more ground. Sarah ventured toward the island's center, while James and Tom stayed near the perimeter. Hours passed, and when James and Tom reconvened, Sarah was nowhere to be found. They called out for her, but received no response. Panic set in as they scoured the island, but she had seemingly vanished without a trace. Desperate, James and Tom contacted local authorities, who arrived quickly to conduct a search. However, no sign of Sarah was found. Her equipment left behind contained chilling footage. As she explored the island, shadows darted behind her, and her camera captured disembodied voices whispering her name. The final frame showed her turning around, a look of terror on her face, before the feed cut to static. The disappearance of Sarah remains a mystery. The footage recovered from her camera added to the island's haunted reputation, drawing both curiosity and fear. James and Tom left the island deeply shaken, vowing never to return. The Isle of the Dolls, already infamous, now had a new, real-life horror to add to its legend. In June 2024, a group of treasure hunters and historians ventured to Oak Island in Nova Scotia, Canada. Oak Island has long been shrouded in mystery due to the infamous Money Pit, where numerous attempts to uncover hidden treasure have led to tragic accidents and strange occurrences. The team, led by experienced treasure hunter Rick Johnson, included his colleagues Emma, Paul, and Lisa. They were armed with the latest technology and planned an extensive exploration of the island's most enigmatic sites, hoping to finally solve the mystery of the money pit. On their third night, while setting up equipment near Smith's Cove, they noticed unusual electromagnetic readings on their detectors. Intrigued, they decided to investigate further. As they dug deeper, they uncovered a series of ancient, waterlogged wooden planks that seemed to form a structure leading towards the money pit. Excitement turned to fear as strange phenomena began to occur. Paul reported seeing shadowy figures moving among the trees, and Lisa felt an inexplicable coldness, despite the warm summer night. Their radio equipment started to emit a static noise, mixed with faint, unintelligible voices. Determined to push on, they continued their excavation the next day. While Paul and Emma explored a newly discovered tunnel, Rick and Lisa stayed above ground to monitor the equipment. Suddenly, a loud rumbling noise echoed from the tunnel, followed by Paul's frantic shouts. Emma emerged first, pale and trembling, claiming that the tunnel had collapsed behind Paul. Rick and Lisa rushed to help, but despite their efforts, they couldn't reach Paul. The tunnel had filled with water, and the ground above had become unstable. Authorities were called in, and a search and rescue operation began, but there was no sign of Paul. The footage from their cameras showed unsettling images. Shadowy figures appeared and disappeared, and Paul's final moments in the tunnel were captured, his flashlight revealing carvings on the walls, symbols and markings that none of them could decipher. The video ended abruptly as the tunnel collapsed. The disappearance of Paul added to the legend of Oak Island. Rick, Emma, and Lisa left the island with heavy hearts, convinced that the island's mysteries might never be fully understood. Their experience served as a chilling reminder of the dangers and the enigmatic forces that continue to guard Oak Island's secrets. Ninth story, The Haunted Lighthouse of Eilean Mor. In February 2024, a team of paranormal investigators decided to explore the Eilean Mor Lighthouse in the remote Flannan Isles, Scotland. The lighthouse is infamous for the mysterious disappearance of 3 keepers in 1900, a case that has never been solved and has given rise to numerous ghost stories. The team, led by veteran investigator John Harris, included his colleagues Rachel, David, and Sarah. They were equipped with various paranormal detection devices, hoping to capture evidence of supernatural activity. As they arrived, the isolated lighthouse stood eerily against the rugged landscape. The team set up their equipment and began their investigation at dusk. They split into pairs. John and Sarah explored the lighthouse, while Rachel and David monitored the surrounding grounds. Strange occurrences began almost immediately. Sarah felt an inexplicable chill as they climbed the spiral staircase, and John's EMF detector spiked erratically. Upstairs, they found the keeper's logbook, which ended abruptly, adding to the mystery. Meanwhile, Rachel and David experienced unusual activity outside. David saw fleeting shadows and heard faint, distant voices carried by the wind. Rachel's thermal camera detected cold spots moving around the lighthouse, defying any natural explanation. At midnight, the team regrouped in the keeper's quarters to review their findings. Suddenly, the lighthouse's old foghorn, which hadn't been operational for years, blared loudly. The sound was deafening, and the vibrations seemed to resonate through the entire structure. As they rushed to investigate, the lights flickered and then went out, plunging them into darkness. John managed to restore power using their backup generator, but Sarah was missing. The team frantically searched the lighthouse, calling her name. They found her in the lantern room at the top, staring out to sea, unresponsive and shivering uncontrollably. When she finally came to, she described seeing 3 ghostly figures in old-fashioned keepers' uniforms, beckoning her to follow them. Reviewing their footage the next morning, the team discovered chilling evidence. The cameras captured ghostly apparitions, flickering lights, and shadowy figures moving independently of any known source. Sarah's account was supported by the footage. 3 indistinct figures could be seen in the lantern room, disappearing as John and Rachel approached. Deeply shaken, the team left Eileen Moore, convinced that the spirits of the missing keepers still haunted the lighthouse. Their investigation added to the legend, leaving them with more questions than answers and a sense of awe and fear at the supernatural forces they had encountered. 10th story: The Ghosts of Hashima Island. In March 2024, a group of urban explorers decided to visit Hashima Island, also known as Battleship Island, off the coast of Nagasaki, Japan. Once a bustling coal mining facility, the island was abandoned in the 1970s and has since become a crumbling, eerie ghost town. The group consisted of 5 explorers: Mike, Julia, Chris, Emma, and Alex. They were eager to document the island's decaying structures and uncover any signs of the paranormal activity rumored to haunt the place. Upon arriving, they were struck by the island's desolate atmosphere. The dilapidated buildings, overgrown with vegetation, stood as silent reminders of the island's former life. As they ventured deeper into the ruins, they felt an increasing sense of unease. On their first night, the group set up camp in one of the old apartment blocks. As they reviewed their footage, they heard strange noises echoing through the corridor's footsteps, whispers, and the distant sound of machinery, despite the island being long abandoned. Intrigued, they decided to explore further. Mike and Julia headed to the old mine entrance, while Chris, Emma, and Alex investigated the remains of the school. At the mine, Mike and Julia felt an intense coldness and heard faint voices calling out. Julia's flashlight flickered, and she thought she saw shadowy figures moving in the darkness. Meanwhile, in the school, Chris, Emma, and Alex found old classrooms filled with broken desks and scattered books. As they documented the scene, they heard the faint laughter of children, followed by the sound of a bell ringing. Emma turned to see a ghostly figure of a young girl standing in the hallway, who vanished as she approached. Shaken, the group reunited and decided to leave the island the next morning. However, their departure was delayed when Alex disappeared. They searched frantically but found no trace of him. As dawn broke, they reluctantly left without him, contacting local authorities for assistance. The footage they recovered was disturbing. It showed Alex wandering off towards the central square, seemingly in a trance, before disappearing from the camera's view. The remaining recordings captured unsettling anomalies, shadowy figures, disembodied voices, and cold spots. A thorough search by authorities yielded no clues to Alex's whereabouts. The disappearance added to Hashima Island's haunted reputation, drawing even more curiosity and fear. Mike, Julia, Chris, and Emma left the island haunted by their experience and the mystery of Alex's fate, vowing never to return.